Hello, everyone. My name is Gabrielle. Some people call me G-Bell, and I'd like to share some thoughts and experiences with you about my young adult years. And then after that, I want to share something unearthly, supernatural things with you from my book. Some time ago, I was preparing for this opportunity, of a dream I had, a lifetime opportunity. You know what I mean? Have you ever done that? You prepare for it, you work hard for it. Then something unexpected happened. Guess what? I got injured. Yes. And if you've ever gotten injured, say for instance, if you got a chemical or something in your eye, the first thing you would do is try to find some eye wash, right? To put in your eye so that you could rinse that chemical out. What about if you had a cut? You would first what? Sanitize your hands, right? Then you would find some dressing like this or something and put a band-aid on that cut. If you had a burn, then you would take this burn dressing and put it on the burn, right? And then you would wrap it in gauze, perhaps. Well, my injury was different. The nature of it was a fall, and I fell on my right knee. And when I think about it, it still hurts. I still have problems with it, actually. I didn't do this. This is what I should have did. I should have iced it down. I should have had a cold press like this, or I should have had some ice. But instead, I did this. I covered it with painkillers. That wasn't very smart. It took a while for me to recover. I wanted to nail this interview, right? Or audition, I should say. And I didn't actually nail it, and this isn't a nail either. This is a screw. But think of it. It was a nail and it was about twice as long as this. And not only was it twice as long as this, it was a lot thicker and it was rusty. And it went right through the same foot of the injury of my leg. And I ignored it and kept taking these painkillers. And not only that, I took this gauze and I wrapped my foot up, probably cutting off my circulation, right? Not a good idea. All of that for this 3-minute audition that I thought was my golden opportunity. I ignored my pain. And now that I think of it, it wouldn't have worked out, right? It would have been rigorous rehearsals, standing, dancing up and down the staircase. It just wouldn't have worked. I wasn't ready, but I kept ignoring the pain, kept covering it with this. And so I got injured the first time, right? And then the second time I got injured, I took even more painkillers. There I was standing there the day of my audition with my foot wrapped in gauze, too tight, wonder if they noticed by my dilated pupils and my slow reactions. Of course they did. But through this experience, I learned something very important. Number one, always acknowledge your pain. Number two, never ever cover your pain to the extent that you cannot feel it. And number three, begin the healing process immediately. And here's why. Had I just used the simple method of doing this, right, putting ice on it or an ice pack, I could have prevented that constant tearing of the ligaments. Those ligaments are there in place to hold that kneecap in place. Now, it's unstable. I still have problems to this very day. And this was decades ago. Back then when the injury occurred, it took 5 or 6 years before I could even walk on it, put enough pressure on it because my jobs were very physical and there just wasn't that much room for downtime. I met a friend that introduced me to a great physical therapist that got me up and going and back on track. But I still, took me some time to get my knee back in shape again because I didn't acknowledge, the pain and tried to cover it with those painkillers. Not a good idea. The kind of pain that I just described to you is easy to see, right? Because we talked about physical pain, something you can see. I mean, they witnessed I limped. They witnessed I had gauze on my foot. You could, if you have I should have used a cold pack, right? That's something you could see. I'd put on the knee, or that I should have put on my knee. If I had a burn, they would have known I was injured because they would have seen me put the dressing on and the gauze, etc. But there's a different kind of pain I want to talk to you about. There's a pain that hides within a forced smile, behind a wounded soul. Have you experienced it? I have. Spending days and nights in restaurants, in clubs, in bars with my friends. We're all numbing our pain together. Nobody feels a thing. And what we learned today is that numbing our pain through my mistakes is a bad idea because it causes even more damage, right? Listen, there's a lot of people in pain today. The name of my book is How I Survived My Son's Suicide, Escape from Darkness. Now, heavy title, I know. The title alone probably makes you want to shut your computer down or turn the channel really quick, right? But there's a lot of people that have gone through this, and I want to talk to you a little bit more. And I'm going to bring up some things in my book that I experienced that I believe that are going to help you on your journey of healing. Now, here's the question. Why do people ignore pain? You know why? I believe one of the reasons why is because people have pride. All of us do. We want people to look up to us and say, "Oh, she's the life of the party. Oh yeah, she's got it going on." Nobody really wants to talk about how they really feel if they're going through deep, dark issues, right? Nobody wants to be labeled the one that brings everybody down. So they cover their pain. Here's one way to do it. You know, drugs, alcohol, different ways people cover their pain. I believe also another reason why people don't talk about their pain too is because they don't know how to express it. They don't know how to articulate it. And one of the reasons why is because if you're constantly covering your pain, you're not feeling anything. So how can you explain something you can't even feel? Because you won't allow yourself to feel. Sometimes pain, like I said, it can be embarrassing to talk to people about it. Let me share a story with you on a lighter side, okay? There was this lady in our town. Her name was Sister Smith when I was a young teenager growing up, and she was a beautiful, full-figured woman. She had long salt and pepper hair. She was brown skinned, and she had this jazzy, bluesy way of playing the piano. She was a piano teacher. And so if you were a PK, which is a preacher's kid, most likely you were taking lessons from this woman, right? And she used to carry all of her essentials in this really big navy blue denim bag. And one of the reasons why she did that was because she caught the bus everywhere she went. So, if she left home early in the morning, she probably wasn't going to get back home until late that night because she would go from rehearsal to rehearsal to rehearsal. On occasion, somebody would give her a ride home. But anyway, she had her purse in that bag, she had her music in that bag, and she had something else in that bag that I'll never forget. It was her ruler-sized wooden spoon that she would light your hand up with. I was told from all of those who took lessons from her. My brother took lessons from her. I decided not to. Yeah. One of the reasons why I decided not to take lessons from her, guess what it is? Of course, it was fear. Yes, I feared the wooden spoon. And the second reason was because I was embarrassed. I didn't want to be embarrassed because I didn't have my hands in the right place or whatever. Yeah. And the next reason, I didn't want to make that kind of commitment, because back then, if your parents paid for your music lessons, you weren't backing out. Back then, if you said you wanted to take music and they put the money up there, you were going to finish music. You see, back then, in those days, not only did your parents spank you, but they also would allow their friends and other people they respected in the community to light you up as well. Yeah, so you were surrounded by all this accountability. So you really had to be careful and take things seriously. But anyway, let's talk about fear. It's something we've all experienced in our lifetime. Fear is something bigger than us, it feels like, right? It's something that we all have to face, and it can hinder our progress in life if we allow it. I wish I would have taken the risk of taking those lessons back then. Those kids, they learned how to play that piano to this day. Every student that she ever taught is really a great musician to this very day. Isn't it funny how fear can keep us from something that we need to embrace? Yeah, I had that fear of the wooden spoon, and I let pride keep me away from learning something that could aid me today in learning how to play music. I mean, there's lots of apps out there and different quick little things you can do to learn. But those years of learning, the structure of music, I could still do it, but I was a lot younger then. It would have been easier for me to do that. Yes, pride can hinder your dream. It can hinder progress in your life. Pride and feeling pain go hand in hand on today's journey of discovery. I want you to repeat something with me, okay? Let's repeat this together. Let's be bold enough to feel pain, and let's be humble enough to be vulnerable to learn from it. All right, let's do it again. Let's be bold enough to feel pain, and let's be humble enough and vulnerable enough to learn from it. Oh, God. Whew. Tough sometimes. But this advice goes against our nature, of course, because it's uncomfortable. But sometimes we have to break through things that make us feel uncomfortable. It's for the betterment of our well-being. Otherwise, we will not break out into that one thing that could change our life forever. So don't be afraid to feel pain. Don't be so embarrassed to talk about it. Be vulnerable. Be humble. Don't let pride take over your life, because you deserve a good life. All right? Okay. I would like to share my motivation, the reason why I want to talk to you today, actually. I first wrote this book for myself to kind of help me through my pain, right? But I realized that this story could help so many people. I'm going to share with you an experience. It was November 19th, 2012. I was getting up to use the restroom. I glanced at my phone, and I had 2 phone calls from my oldest son. The beginning, that's what I call him. His name is Genesis. And it was like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I thought, I'll call him back first thing in the morning, I said to myself. But it was kind of a sleepless, restless kind of a night. You know what I mean? I tossed and I turned, I tossed and I turned. And I got back up shortly after that, maybe an hour later, and I picked up my phone again. I looked at it, and I had 40 phone calls. Okay? So I knew something was really wrong. So I'm going through this phone. I'm scrolling through all the numbers, And I'm looking to see if I see two very important phone calls, both of my son's phone number, but I only saw one, my eldest son, Genesis. I didn't see Reese. We called him Reese or Reese. His name was Maurice. And then he had a stage name. They called him Faraji. I'm looking for his number and I don't see it. So I'm still scrolling to see who called. And I noticed that Buddy, that's what we call him, my son's father, had called. And him and I had had these conversations before about what would we do if we got a phone call about our children, you know, that fatal phone call that something horrible happened to them. We had this conversation many times. That phone call that no parent ever wants to get. When I saw his number, I said, that's who I'm going to call. Whew, so I called him. And so he picked up the phone. And all I could hear on the other end of the phone was screaming. This grown man wailing. And I couldn't take it. I just hung the phone up and I started pacing the floor, and I heard that still, soft voice speak to me. You know, that voice that said, be still, calm down. You've got to hear what he's got to tell you. Use self-control. So I picked back up the phone and I called him again. And I said, Buddy, before you tell me anything, tell me this one thing. Are both of my sons alive? And he said, yes. I says, okay, tell me whatever you need to tell me. He said, your son shot himself in the head. And he said, the doctors are saying, get a hold of your family and tell them to pray that the swelling goes down so that we can go inside of his brain and repair the damage. So there is a chance he will survive. Whew, that was tough news. But I got through it. I told Buddy thank you. I hung up the phone. I ran, got my house coat, came down the stairs. For some reason, I stood in front of the television and I yelled as loud as I could. Why? 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 I said it 3 times. And all of a sudden, I had this vision of the Holy Spirit. He was right in front of me and he had his shoulders kind of shrugged like this, like he had his arms up like this, like, I did all I could. I did everything I could, but he wanted to die. He didn't want to live anymore. And I thought, well, I'm just going to lose my mind then. You know, did you know that you can lose your mind at will? You can say, I'm going to lose my mind, and do you know that you'll lose it? A lot of people are walking around here and their minds lost because they made a decision they were going to lose it. That's what I decided. And I just wanted to fall out. I didn't know what to do. So I'm on my way down, you know, falling out. And I said I'm going to lose my mind, right? So that's what I had. I'm going to lose my mind. That's what I decided I was going to do, right? So before I could hit the floor, I was in this vision. And I was swimming all of a sudden. And I was in this water. And it was crystal clear. And it was alive. Well, let me explain that to you. Several years ago, it was more like 2 decades actually, I had this vision. Some people get caught up. If you don't know what that means, it's a beautiful experience. I had this angel visitation. I was at a retreat, and the Spirit of God was so thick in that place. It's like you could walk down the hallway, and you could feel the presence of angels. It was really heavy duty experience that I had. Anyway, this angel took me to this pool of water in heaven, and it was so pure and so beautiful. It was crystal clear, and the water was alive. Every single drop of water was singing a song in a different genre. Check this out. And in a different language. I'm not even done yet. In perfect harmony. Now, that sounds impossible, but not in heaven. And they were singing in a different language. Now check this out. Imagine rap. Imagine, I guess the kids like hip hop. Imagine opera. Imagine country western, bluegrass. You know, all this music, just praising God and worshiping God. It was alive. It was the most amazing thing. And the water was so crystal clear. It sparkled. Everything, the white was so brilliant. It just sparkled. It was just the most beautiful experience that I ever had. Now, back to the story. Now, here I am swimming in this living water that I just explained to you what living water is. And I hear all these sounds, right? I hear this sound coming at me on the left side. And it's coming fast. And I happen to look over to my left because I'm in this water, and I look up. And it looks like a bullet. And it's coming fast. Shh, coming fast. And then I hear another sound. I hear flames of fire coming up from down below, and then the flames are going way, way up. And then I hear another sound. I hear this sound coming from a high place, from heaven. And it's kind of like a wind. And it was a big hand. And here comes this bullet coming headed toward the flames, but this hand intercepts. Here's the bullet going inside the hand, right? The hand I see opens up, and I see this big hand do this to a big old chest. Well, you know who that is. Then I saw the bosom open up, and I heard this voice. I'll never forget it. The voice shook everything. The voice said, "He's with me." And I thought, oh my God, he's with you. He's with you, the Creator. He went back to the Creator. I tell you, I was on that floor. When I went down, remember, I went down to lose my mind. I went down because the pain I was feeling was so excruciating, I just couldn't take anymore. This is how people feel. They feel so overwhelmed with the pain, they just can't take another thing. They want to lose it. They want out of here. But before I hit that floor, it was like everything slowed way down. And I began to swim in that water. And I saw that beautiful vision. And then everything came back. I was back in my living room. I was crying for a whole different reason now. I was crying because God had mercy on my son. You see, I grew up thinking that if you took your life, you were going to go to hell. And I'm not suggesting to anybody to take their life. Your life is a gift. Your life is precious. And if you take your life, you don't know where you're going to go. There's no guarantee you're going to go to heaven if you take your life. So don't do it. But for some reason, because of God's mercy, because of God's grace, my son ended up in heaven. He was snatched from a fire, literally, and he went inside God's bosom, and he resides there. I wanted to share that with you, those of you that feel hopeless. You know, some people think there's not a God. Some people don't believe there's a God. But after my experience, I should say experiences, because I've had so many. But I'm just talking about this particular one. How I survived my son's suicide escape from darkness, okay? Nobody can ever tell me there's not a God. There's a loving God, a mighty creator who loves you so very much. And he's so concerned about your pain. And he wants to heal it. And so I just wanted to share that story with you. I'd like to share another story with you that's supernatural. And it happened on the eve of my birthday. This was back in 2013. I was feeling kind of sad because it was like the last time I felt like, I was going to ever hear from my son. I mean, in other words, I was never going to hear from him again, right? Not naturally. Not ever, really. He's gone. So that was my reality. And I was having a hard time with that one. And I was sitting at my desk, and all of a sudden I heard his voice. And then I felt a hand on my shoulder, and I got really scared. I thought, what is going on? This is weird. Is there some witch playing a trick on me or something? What's going on here? And I remember looking to the right, and I saw this angel, and then I heard this voice say, calm down. This voice always calms me down. Take a deep breath. And it was just like God had a remote control, and he pushed play, and all of a sudden my son says, Mom, you're going to be just fine. Just keep going. Keep doing what you're doing. Everything's going to work out great for you. And I'm like, I got to get out of here. This is crazy. So I ran to my open closet and I shook myself into reality, trying to tell myself this isn't real. I must be losing it or something. So I tried to forget about it, and I was looking at my clothes hanging on the side of the door. That was for my birthday party. And so anyway, I'm looking at the dress, and I'm thinking, well, what can I wear, with this, accessorize, And then all of a sudden I heard his voice again. And I turned around and he said, Mom, wear that dress for your birthday. And I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do. Then he said, Mom, wear the shoes that match it. And I thought, I got shoes to match this? So I get on the ladder and I look up there, and there it is, leopard heels. I pull them down. They match perfect. Excuse me. And I said, wow. And then his voice shifted and he said, Mom, I'm sorry I hurt you. And he said, tell my godmother that I said hello. I've got to go. And just like that, he was gone. That was my hallmark from heaven. And wow, what a beautiful regal gift God gave me that day. God is real, people. And I don't know if everybody will get a hallmark from heaven like I got, but I tell you, he's real. And it's just amazing. I want to talk a little bit about scars, because after pain, after you've been injured, there's a scar that happens, right? If you had that cut, you would get this little bump thing. It's scar tissue. What happens is the collagen and the proteins, they come together and they form this scar tissue. Now think about it. If you've been traumatized by suicide or anything tragic in your life, there's a scar on your heart. You're emotionally scarred. And when I go to my massage therapist, and she's giving me a massage, it feels really, really great until she hits scar tissue. When she hits the scar tissue, it hurts. And I told her, don't ever touch my scar tissue again. And she says, no, you don't understand. I've got to get in there and break it all up so you can have better movement. If I don't get in there, you won't be able to move. You'll be stiff. So I allowed her to go in and press on it, and it was painful. Don't you know it's painful to get into the scar of your heart to talk about what's going on? Don't cover your pain. Get that counselor. Talk to somebody about your pain, somebody who can understand you. There's groups out here. There's books. Get my book. I talk a lot about how to get over this pain. And there's other books as well. I want to share another story. I was in Washington, D.C. not long ago, and I was in the other room, and my friend had the Gospel Network station on, and I heard this guy preaching up a storm. I thought, who in the world is that? So I rushed over to the television set, and to my surprise, I was amazed. This man had no legs. This man had no arms. But he was preaching up a storm, telling everybody about God and how they should hang in there and have hope. And I'm thinking, wow, this man was born this way. And he learned how to get over the adversity and all the negativity. And God's blessing him with his precious life. And he's grateful for what he's got. He doesn't have arms, he doesn't have legs, but he's grateful and he's working it. He's encouraging people. What about your veterans that lost a limb, lost an arm, lost a leg, that are still encouraging people? What about people that lost their breast through breast cancer? But they hold their shirt up and they say, here's my scar, but I'm still here. You know what? That scar that you have, let somebody get in there and manipulate that thing. Break all that scar tissue up inside of you so that you can live your best life, because you deserve that. Don't live from anniversary to anniversary of his death or her death, killing your pain, numbing it, because you gotta feel it. And you can work through this. I know you can. I want to thank you for listening to me. I want to thank you for taking time out to hear my story. And there was a young man, or I shouldn't say was, there is a young man. His name is Isaac Sawyer. And he was a friend of my son's. He's like a brother, actually. He was one of those good friends. He was a very good influence, and he wrote this song called Scars. It's so appropriate to my messages, because I have a healing message for people. And his name is Isaac Sawyer. You can find his music on isawyermusic.com. And you can find my book on Gabrielle Moncrease.com. And that information is going to be in the window of this video. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. And remember, your life is worth living, and God wants you to have your best life. All right? Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Pick your fights, take flight, make a decision. Find the light where you can get it.